Today, we are back at Street Machinery, Hot Rods, and Classic Cars located in Elucid, Ohio to take a look at this 1964 Chevy Impala wagon. But first, I'm Jay. Welcome to What It's Like. This channel, we feature the classics, vintage, some exotics, lots of orphan cars, and cars that are off the beaten path. We dive in deep, give specs, show perceptions, as well as period correct ads, and talk about things that most other car channels don't really talk about. If that sounds of interest to you, subscribe. Hit the bell icon next to it to never miss a video. If you would like to get in touch with me, two ways are the best ways. You could leave a comment in the comment section below. I read every single comment that is posted. I also respond to all the comments, and it will always be like that. It's not a computer bot or a secretary. It's me. And like I said, it will always be that way. The other way is we made a Facebook group that correlates with this YouTube channel. There's no obligation to join the Facebook group, just simply saying that it's there if for your convenience. If you'd like to join, it shows period correct ads taken from the videos, also show different cars for sale in the area. If you're looking for a classic car cheap, Facebook Marketplace is a great place to look for that. The biggest thing is it gives you the opportunity to share your rides, stories, memories, experiences about the cars, any car really. And get this, so I'm not a jerk. If you have a YouTube channel and you'd like to promote it on there, go for it. Anything car related is allowed on this Facebook group. It's all about getting the younger generations involved with this awesome hobby called the car hobby. So if you're interested, links in the description. If you totally dig this channel and the content as well as the episode, please give us a like so more people can see this video in the future. Bit of a side note, I wasn't going to add this, but we started this channel back in September of last year, and my goal was to have 1,000 subscribers, 4,000 hours of watch time by the end of the year. Well, we hit 1,000 subscribers in March, and we had well over 4,000 hours of watch time, so I increased the goal to 10,000 subscribers by September, which would be totally epic if we can pull it off. We are so close. As of taping this episode, we just passed 7,000 subscribers. 10,000, even if we don't make 10,000, we have come a long way in such a short distance, but it would be really cool to see 10,000 by September. So I'm just asking if you could please share the channel so other people can see the content as well. And if they want to subscribe, they can subscribe. All right, let's talk 1964 Chevy lineup. Before getting into the wagons, we're going to lay out all of Chevy's offerings for 1964. These models aren't in any particular order. Biscayne, Bel Air, Chevelle. The Chevelle had a series of cars. Chevelle 300, Malibu fell in there. Chevy 2, aka Nova, also Chevy 2 100 series. The Corvair series, which had a whole line of cars. Corvette, Impala, and Impala SS. I'd also like to point out that each different line or model of car had its own hubcap design. Each model listed has its own wagon variant, except for the Corvette and the Corvair. The Corvair did offer a wagon, but it was discontinued in 1963. They still offered the Greenbrier van until 1965, which was the last year. Chevy 2 100 series wagon was the base offering wagon line. It was smaller than all of the other wagons on offer. Moving up to the middle of the field was the Chevelle 300/Malibu. It was, like I said, the middle of the road. It was bigger than the Chevy 2, but it still wasn't as big as the full-size wagons. Stepping up to the full-size wagon range, which included Biscayne, Bel Air, Impala. Just like years previous, these wagons are pretty much the same, the difference being interiors and trim. Our featured wagon is the top of the heap Impala trim. 1963 was the first year Impala was offered as a wagon, and it continued for the 1964 model year. It could be had as a 6-passenger or a 9-passenger configuration. Moving on to some specs. 210.8 inches long, 79.6 inches wide. Rides a 119-inch wheelbase, weighs 3,900 pounds. Price $3,200, which is equivalent to you spending $30,586.94 in the year 2022. I was trying to compile a list of cars that you could get for that price, but they're very dismal. This was a V8 powered wagon back in the day. It just shows you how far the dollar has fallen. Anyway, moving on to total production numbers for Chevy they had a stellar year in 1964. 2,318,619 units. That's total over all of the lines. That's how many they produced. Total Impala production was 689,600 units. Moving on to engines, 1964 was a really crazy year in the fact that you could get 7 different engine options that were on offer. The base engine was a 230 cubic inch displacement inline 6, 3.8 liters, making 140 brake horsepower at 4,400 RPM. Bore of 3.9 inches and a stroke of 3.3 inches. Compression was 925-1. 7 main bearings, fed with a 2-barrel carburetor. Block and head / crankcase is made out of cast iron. Moving up to the first V8 option, 283 cubic inch displacement V8, 4.6 liters, making 220 brake horsepower at 4,800 RPM, 295 foot-pounds of torque at 3,200 RPM. Bore of 3.9 inches, stroke of 3 inches, compression 925-1, 4-barrel carburetor it was fed with. The block / crankcase and or head is made out of cast iron. Moving up the ladder, 327 cubic inch displacement V8, 5.4 liters, making 250 horsepower at 4,400 RPM, 350 foot-pounds of torque at 2,800 RPM. With a bore of 4 inches and a stroke of 3.3 inches, compression was 10.5-1. The block / head was made out of cast iron. It was fed with a 4-barrel carburetor. If that 327 didn't have enough power for you, they offered this 327 cubic inch displacement V8, 5.4 liters at 300 horsepower at 5,000 RPM, 360 foot-pounds of torque at 3,200 RPM. Bore was the same, 4 inches. Stroke is the same at 3.3 inches. Cast iron block and head was the construction of the materials used for the block casting, and it was fed with a 4-barrel carburetor. Now we move up to the last 3 engines, which is essentially the same engine, just different flavors. If you're new to the channel, I'm a huge Beach Boys fan. That's right, you heard that right. 409 was offered in the Chevy wagon lineup. And it's crazy, they offered 3 different versions of it. Before getting into all the 409 specs, let's talk about what the 409 engine was. 409 was offered by Chevy from 1961 to 1965. It was considered W Series Mark I engine. There was 3 engines involved in the Mark I series engine. 348 came out first in 1958, followed by the 409, followed by the 427. The combustion chamber of the W Series engine was in the upper part of the cylinder, not in the head itself. The head only having tiny recesses for the valves. This arrangement was achieved by combining a cylinder head deck that was not perpendicular to the bore with a crowned piston, which was a novel concept in American production engines of its day. As the piston approached top dead center, the angle of the crown combined with that of the head deck to form a wedge-shaped combustion chamber with a pronounced quench area. The spark plugs were inserted vertically into the quenched area, which helped produce a rapidly moving flame for more complete combustion. The theory behind this sort of arrangement that maximum brake mean effective pressure, BMEP, is developed at a relatively low engine speed, resulting in an engine with a broad torque curve. There was a version of the 409 that produced 1 horsepower per cubic inch. It featured aluminum intake manifold, 2 Carter AFB carburetors. It had forged steel crankshaft. This dual quad version was the version in which the Beach Boys sang about in the 409. The 409 was replaced by the 396 in 1965. Getting back to the engine specs, 3 flavors of 409 offered in 1964. The first flavor was 409 cubic inch displacement V8, 6.7 liters, makes 340 brake horsepower at 5,000 RPM, 420 foot-pounds of torque at 3,200 RPM with a bore of 4.3 inches and a stroke of 3.5 inches. Compression 10-to-1. 5 main bearings. The construction of the block/crankcase as well as heads is cast iron. It was fed with a 4-barrel carburetor. Moving on to the middle option, 409 cubic inch displacement, V8, 6.7 liters, 400 brake horsepower at 5,800 RPM, 425 foot-pounds of torque at 3,600 RPM, with a bore of 4.3 inches and a stroke of 3.5 inches. 11-to-1 compression, 5 main bearings, block/crankcase, as well as heads are made out of cast iron. This one was fed with a 4-barrel carburetor as well. Moving on to the biggest and baddest engine on offer in 1964 by Chevy that you could get in the wagon. 409 cubic inch displacement, V8, 6.7 liters, producing 425 brake horsepower at 6,000 RPM, 425 foot-pounds of torque at 4,200 RPM. With a bore of 4.3 inches, a stroke of 3.5 inches, compression 11-to-1, 5 main bearings, block/crankcase is made out of cast iron. It was fed with 2 4-barrel carburetors or dual quads, 3 transmissions on offer, 3-speed manual, 4-speed manual, or the automatic 2-speed power glide. Moving on to options and features, not talking about all of the options or features, just a few that stood out to me. Features: self-adjusting drum brakes. That is huge. My 52 Chevy does not have self-adjusting brakes, so every now and then you have to adjust them, but the 64 Chevy Impala wagon does, so you don't have to adjust the brakes. They adjust them themselves, which is huge. Also, Chevy claimed a total load length of 10 feet to the back of the front seat when the tailgate was down. The option that stood out to me in my mind was the overdrive unit. It used a 2-speed planetary gear set, and I don't understand why companies don't do that now. You could get far better gas mileage if you had an overdrive unit that was outside the transmission. Just an opinion. So just look at this door. Look at how it's all framed out. Door panel, armrest, door handle to get out. Got 2 window cranks. One's for the vent window, and the other one is for the big window. This is what the over the hood view looks like. Lots of space underneath the steering wheel. That's not an issue at all. There's a lot more knee room up here. My knees are nowhere near hitting the dashboard. Still lots of headroom in this car. Your glove box situation. Glove box test. It won't shut. It won't go in far enough for it to shut. So it doesn't fit in this glove box. On to the button switches and knobs, starting with the instrument cluster. The speedometer is the long rectangular style. 120 miles per hour is the highest number on the speedometer. I'm not sure if this car wagon could go faster than that. Maybe with the dual quad 409 engine variant, it could see speeds higher than 120 miles per hour. If you know, in the comment section below, there's an odometer right below the speedometer. Just to the right is the fuel gauge. Just to the right of the fuel gauge is a series of lights, 4 lights: hot, cold, oil, generator. Just to the right of that is the clock. Just below the clock is the radio. Just to the right of the radio is the ashtray, which pulls out like a drawer. At the bottom of the dashboard is a series of gauges, 2 gauges, and they are for the aftermarket air suspension unit. Moving to the left are the climate control settings. At the bottom, and just above that, there is a cigarette lighter, as well as the ignition switch with the key. Moving to the left-hand side of the steering wheel, 2 more switches. The one furthest away is for the windshield wipers. Notice in the center of the windshield wiper switch, there is a part that protrudes outward more so than the rest of the switch. Press that part for the windshield wash feature, and the last one is for the headlights. Coming back up to the drive select modes, this car has a 2-speed Power Glide automatic. The park select modes read park, reverse, neutral, drive, low. This is the rear door. It's just like the front door, but it's in the back. Armrest here or door handle, whatever you use it for. Ashtray. There's ashtrays on both sides. Door handle to get out. And big window for the... This is the window crank for the big window. And it doesn't go all the way down. It stops right there. I'm going to get in the back seat. And yeah, the seating position is very upright, and your knees, my knees, are in the back of this seat. It's not very comfortable. If you had to go for a long period of time, one could, but lots of headroom. Lots of headroom. Headroom's not an issue. Legroom is an issue. Here's the gas door. Notice multi-shaped. It's not just flat. It's got a crease in it. Coming around to the rear back here. To get in the trunk space, you have to put the window down. This turns into a window crank if it doesn't have electric window. That's what it looks like. You could probably haul 4x8 sheet of plywood, drywall in that space, no issue at all. Underneath here, it's where the spare tire would be, or if you got the 9-passenger version, that's where one would put their feet. On to the pros and cons. This car isn't in the complete book of collectible cars, which draws me to question, how complete is the book of collectible cars? Very little wagons are in there. Well, anyway, so I made up my own list for the pros with 7 engines to choose from. Something for everyone. Lots of cargo space when the seats are folded down. It has aged really well, this wagon has. On the cons, it is tight in the second row. Yes, I could move the front seat up a little bit, but it's also, the seat back is very upright. The back seat isn't comfortable at all to sit in. I've never been in a 9-passenger version. I'm interested to see what that's like. Hopefully sometime soon we can do that. This car has a feature that I totally neglected to talk about because I wanted to add it to the con section, where it flushes water. It was called the flush and dry rocker panels, and the thought process was that it would prevent rust. I think it makes the perfect habitat for rust to exist. Let me tell you how this works real quick. So the cowl hood vent in the front is hooked up to these pipes that run down the rocker panels. It empties out right in front of the rear wheel. And the thought process was if water gets down inside there, it can clear all the dirt, grime, whatever gets down inside of there and prevent rust from happening. But what happens if you live in a snow belt or the rust belt and there's snow as well as calcium, chloride, or salt or whatever, and it goes down inside there too? It bonds to the metals and it just rusts it out even faster. So be very careful when you're looking at one of these. On to name that tune. First person to give me the correct band/artist as well as song title will have their comment pinned to the top of the comment section. That one's a little bit easier. They can't all be hard. Anyway, thank you all so much for coming out and watching this. I really appreciate all the support. Please give this video a like so more people can see this content in the future. And until next time, toodaloo!